What's up? Welcome into the CHGO Bears Podcast on a Friday, presented by PointsBet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. Welcome in a newsy day over in Lake Forest. My name is Adam Hoge, alongside Nicholas Moreano, who was over at Hallis Hall today, and Will DeWitt. Guys, the big free agent signing, Larry Ogunjobi. Those of you watching on YouTube saw the graphic there. He has failed his physical. People are hot about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we heard about it just in the media room, we're like, wait, what? Like, Larry Ogunjobi failed his physical. So now what? What's going to happen here? So we're all just kind of sitting there just waiting, to be completely honest. And yeah, it was big news, and obviously that was a 3-tech that was supposed to be the fundamental part in this new defense, and now he's not here.
No, he's not. And, as for Bears fans, that was kind of a punch to the gut. I'm sure it felt the same way for Ryan Poles too, to kind of, hear the news that the physical was failed. Obviously, when you make your first big signing as a GM, that's probably the last thing that he wanted to kind of see, how it would play out here. But I do think the silver lining is the fact that it's been, determined now that he's not a fit in this team just due to his health. That way we didn't find it later on. You're locked into that contract, and the Bears are going to be, in better shape than they would have if they move forward with it.
Yeah, we're already getting comments in. This one from Tommy. Honestly, the contract was a lot. Justin Jones is pretty good. I'll go back to Monday, and I'll say we did a show Monday, Nick, and it was like right after the show ended when the Ogunjobi news broke that the Bears were going to sign him, and my brain immediately was like, well, wait a minute, didn't he just get hurt? Didn't he just have surgery? Like, I remember that from the playoffs, and I was a little surprised. I wasn't surprised that like they targeted 3 technique right away. I was a little surprised that it was like, oh, that's a lot of money for a guy that just had surgery. And I'm like, you try to give him the benefit of the doubt. You're like, okay, well, they must have the information that everything's okay. So to have it go down like this a couple days later, once you get him to the building and he fails his physical, not feel comfortable enough to go forward with them, I want to make it very clear. I think it's a good thing that they made that decision and they caught it before giving him a bunch of money to an injured player. But that being said, I think for a first-time general manager, it is still fair to question the process a little bit and be like, hey, wait a minute here. This isn't the greatest look for a guy making his first big signing to have it all fall through because of a failed physical.
Yeah, I think it's like the optics of it, right? When you see this, like, hey, this is the guy that they targeted first. This is his first signing. And then for it to kind of fall out the way that it did for a guy that was carted off the field in just the wild card playoff game, the wild card playoff win against the Raiders. So it was a quick turnaround for him. And Larry Ogunjobi did tweet out on January 20th, like, surgery was a success. Once again, appreciate all the love and support. But like you said, Adam, this probably was in the best interest of the Bears. And that's what Ryan Poles said in his statement, right? The best for the team moving forward. Like, you don't want to obviously sign a guy who has such a fundamental and key important role in this defense and him not be able to be that guy because of health. So when you look at it, did the Bears maybe avoid like a mistake? Maybe that ends up happening in the long run, but the optics, all the fans saying, well, look at that. It already starts off on the wrong foot, right? So I can see where the frustration from the fan base is at, but in the long run, I think it does end up working in the Bears' favor.
And the fact of the matter is too, like, he didn't have him in the building before. So all you can really draw off of are the conversations that you're having around the league, maybe having with him personally. And, maybe there was a little bit of, an attempted bamboozle here, like try to get me a lot of money while I can get it. And hopefully I can pass this physical. And I don't think
bamboozle. What a great word, by the way, bamboozle.
Thank you. I try. I read the thesaurus for 20 minutes before, every time we record an episode. But that was a great one. I appreciate it. But yeah, no, the fact is, you don't know until you bring them in. And so for fans to, be upset with Poles, I understand it because it does fall flat here. We can talk about Justin Jones in a bit. I don't really like it nearly as much as what a potential Ogunjobi could have brought to the table here. But again, at least we're not locked into a contract with a guy who can't even suit up on the field or isn't progressing through his rehab the way that he should be. And we just went through a whole very similar situation internally with Tariq Cohen, and we don't have to go through that again here moving on from Ogunjobi.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. Like, if anything, I'm actually giving Ryan Poles some credit for, and the medical staff too, for catching this, because again, the worst case scenario is to give him the contract. And I brought it up on Twitter shortly after this news broke today, because Ryan Pace's first big move was Pernell McPhee. That was the big signing. And he also had kind of this cautious approach where he wasn't throwing a ton of money out there early, but he did give Pernell McPhee a massive contract. And for years after that, we heard the stories about how that knee was kind of barking, and the people in Baltimore where he came from had a better understanding of where that knee was at than the Bears did. They did not catch it in the physical, or if they did, they decided it wasn't a big enough deal not to give him the contract. So the contrast there of getting the failed physical and not signing the player, I think is probably a step forward in the right direction. I just also at the same time think it's completely fair to raise questions about how all this went down at a minimum, because you don't know how the week could have played out differently had they not had this money allocated since Monday in their spreadsheets and on their big boards in the office to Larry Ogunjobi. And we'll never know that. And maybe it didn't affect too much, but, do they keep Bilal Nichols? My guess is probably not, but, possibility. Do they go harder after Brian Allen, who re-signed with the Rams? Would they have been willing to give an extra $1 million or $2 million a year with that money? Again, things we'll never know, but I think it's completely fair to wonder about here. And on the flip side, hey, now they have all this money. They could maybe turn around and give it to a high quality left tackle like Terran Armstead.
That would be a nice little alternative there. And I will give Poles some credit too, because 15 minutes later, we heard from Jeremy Fowler at ESPN that the Bears are in on Justin Jones. So there was already an alternative. There's Poles kind of working the phone, seeing who's available, who he can bring in. And for a guy that was a former third-round pick out of NC State, did have a career year and a lot of stats there with the Chargers in terms of sacks, tackles, and things like that. But he also did miss 6 games last year, 5 after being placed on IR with a calf injury, and missed 1 due to COVID. So still there is that injury. I don't want to say injury history, but he's never had played a full 16 game schedule. And then obviously 17s with last year in his young career. But obviously the Bears felt, I guess maybe they have to see the medicals too when they get him in the building, but at least they had an alternative and didn't just leave a vacant spot in the middle of their defense.
I'd call it injury history. The fact that you can't put together a full season, whether it's last year, with the calf and the ankle, the shoulder injury that happened in 2019 and 2020 that kept him out of around, 7 games total between those 2 seasons. Like, that's a history that I'm definitely keeping in mind. I know he's young, Jones is only 26. But the fact of the matter that he hasn't been able to put together a full season is a concern for me. And honestly, every time I was looking into it this afternoon, trying to talk myself into this signing and pump myself up, all right, we didn't get Ogunjobi, but we have Justin Jones. I couldn't get there, guys. It really feels like a plan B, every way you cut it. And I would still say a dominant, disruptive 3-tech still needs to be a priority now for the Bears, because I don't think Justin Jones is that.
I think that's a fair concern. Some of the reaction coming out of Los Angeles right away from some of the people who have covered him, mostly optimistic about him as a player if he can stay healthy, but that's a big if. And hey, I think we learned our lesson here. He's still got to pass his physical, right?
Yeah.
So another thing to throw out there. And I guess my question to you guys right now is, and we can just include this as one thing that happened this week amongst everything, but now we've had 5 days. Free agency's been open. Trade window's been open. We've seen moves other teams have made. Are you happy with the week so far? Are you disappointed? Are you a little worried about Ryan Poles? Or are you still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt?
I am not worried about Ryan Poles, but I am slightly disappointed at the same time. I think, if I had to give it a grade, I'm at the C to C plus range with Ogunjobi. if he would have passed that physical, I was looking at more like a B- area. I'm happy he's not just throwing all the money, out the window right now and signing all these guys to big, massive contracts, taking his time, letting this market settle down just a bit. But, and again, I'm not trying to knock it too much for your first signing not being able to pan out. As we said, I think it is maybe a silver lining, a positive here that the Bears were able to diagnose that. But still, and we'll talk about some of the receivers they signed this week. It's still underwhelming, but I understand the cautious approach at the same time. So I'm just kind of in the middle.
For me, I like Ryan Poles' approach. I mean, look, he looked at this roster, said, we need to upgrade the offensive line. We got Lucas Patrick. We need to get a 3-tech. It was supposed to be Ogunjobi. We need to add wide receivers for Justin Fields. You got Pringle and then Equimania St. Brown. So obviously identified the areas of need, went out to try to go, upgrade those as best he could. But you also got to know that the Bears, they didn't go into this with as much cap space as like the Jaguars did and other teams that really can throw that money up to the higher target free agents, right? So I get the approach. Obviously Ogunjobi not being able to be that 3-tech does hurt a bit, but I understand exactly where Poles is coming from and how he's trying to do this. And now we see how he can adapt. And I think this maybe could be a silver lining too. It's like, okay, plan A didn't work. What can I do for plan B to still salvage this roster, to still make this workable? Because we knew with the last regime, sometimes when plan A didn't go to fruition, there wasn't maybe even a plan B or plan C. So it just kind of seemed lost. So now we get to see Ryan Poles work. And like I said, Justin Jones is here. And that happened 15 minutes later after we heard about the Ogunjobi news.
And I think, if Justin Jones is the plan B, I have a problem. If he's a part of the plan B, great. I'm excited to find out, what the other pieces are here. But yeah, exactly, Nick. It's good, but we need to be, patient. And I think it's a virtue, but we'll get there.
Weave says, come on, guys, stop being so pessimistic. The fact that Poles had a plan B speaks to his working the phone and not forcing anything. I gotta take a little bit exception to that. He better have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D and a plan E and a plan F 3 weeks ago, because that's how this works. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have your free agency board, and if you don't, then you're not even qualified to be a general manager. So I'm not willing to go to the lowest common denominator on the credit we're giving the GM. They pivoted. That's what your job is to do. And it's quite frankly a guy in Justin Jones who at this point in his career is just a guy. All right. So I'm struggling. I understand everybody's still in the honeymoon phase here where they want to give the new guy all the credit in the world, but he just did his job here. And it's not criticism either. It's just, I could give him too much credit. And by the way, he failed his physical yesterday. So it has been 24 hours. It's not like they signed him 15 minutes later. The news came out right after it got announced. That's all.
It would have been nice to know that before we were at Hellas Hall, as we were kind of waiting there for about an hour, knowing what the heck was going on. But this is an interesting comment here, Adam. I want to get your thoughts on this, because in that press release, that statement, the wording said that they would not be signing him today. I don't know. For you, did that almost leave the door open for, hey, maybe, I don't know, if somehow, some way that injury becomes better or he's able to show medically that he can play, does that door kind of become open again?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. For one, as we're doing the show right now, we don't necessarily even know that the foot's the issue.
True.
Maybe they found a different problem in some other part of his leg. Those things happen, but maybe it's not healing properly. Maybe it is the foot. And the reality is, I think that word today is important because it means today after the physical. And I'm with you, glass half full, guys. That's why I'm saying they're going to take this money. They're going to go sign Teron Armstead. And then, and then Olin Kreutz can trade for Deshaun Watson. And then everything, then it's a completely different team. But today it does matter because they determined after the physical, he's not worth the contract that they had agreed to. Now what happens next? Is there another team? And I've seen this happen before. There could be another team that does a physical on him that says, you know what, we're comfortable with this. And they go out and sign him. Or and this is why I was surprised that the signing happened so quickly when it did, because he just had foot surgery 2 months ago. Maybe he just takes another couple months of recovery. Maybe he doesn't have a contract. And they reevaluate things after the draft. I've said this multiple times this week, guys. Like this stuff, this teams will make draft picks, cut more guys. Like there's a second, third, fourth, fifth wave of free agency that goes on here for a few months, including all the way to August in the middle of training camp. So it's completely possible that Larry Ogunjobi doesn't sign elsewhere, gets healthier. I'm sure it'll be for less money.
Exactly.
But they can get him at a cheaper rate later. Or maybe he goes and signs with the Packers by like 5:00 tonight, because no one can keep track of what Green Bay is doing.
No, that's a great point. But the fact that if we do go back that direction later on this offseason, if he's still sitting around, rehabbing and is healthy, and we can get him for a better bargain, again, patience could pay off here for the Bears. So keeping the door open would just make sense. I wouldn't just say, okay, moving on next. Like you always want to have something in your back pocket and keep that, I guess, relationship intact in case things do change down the road.
Yeah, I think I saw a comment on here. What was like the mood like at House Hall? We were just all like, "What is Nicholas Morrow, Lucas Packard? Are they going to show up?" Like we were just kind of thinking, "Well, what's next?" But yeah, nothing too crazy there at House Hall. When we heard the news, we were again a little like, "Okay, that's interesting," but we were just wondering if we were going to be able to talk to anybody today.
Someone commented there that they like your man cave, Will.
It's something.
Well, we determined yesterday that that's where all of Olin Cruz's PS5s are stored.
No, just mine.
Okay.
I think mine is in the shot in the picture here. I don't know if you guys see that, but it's like that.
Yeah,
that's how we started talking about the PS5s. Well, I said, you had bought 2 because the transactions didn't go through, and then somehow it got into.
It's just weird for you to
hacking. Yeah.
Why are you putting the evidence in the frame? Like this is just now naming you a suspect for the person who hacked Olin's Twitter account.
I literally just got here like 2 minutes ago, Adam, trying to drive back because we were supposed to talk to Equimania St. Brown. So I drove here. Whatever the camera setup, the laptop setup was, that's how it is.
Robert says Hoge bravely talking about Olin from home. Let's see him do it in studio. Yeah, why do you think I took that shot on Twitter on Monday when I knew his account was deactivated? I'm not stupid here. Come on.
Why do you think I sit in the middle? I sit in the middle,
Yeah. Yeah, and I do understand you didn't have enough time to set up that shot, because otherwise you would have moved that Iowa football after what happened yesterday.
Oh, I was really hoping we'd get through like this whole show the weekend without mentioning. Yeah, no, I knew as soon as they lost, I'm like, man, what's Hoge gonna say? What's Adam gonna say tomorrow? Then I'm like, oh, I'm not even gonna be on maybe because I'll be at House Hall. But here we are.
You'll get the last laugh when Wisconsin loses to Colgate tonight or something. All right.
Yeah,
we got a super chat here from D Groovy. The scary thing is with our free agents is that Fields is in a mega important year 2. And is the O-line wide receiver court good enough or even better than it was right now? That is a no until it happens. It's scary. I completely agree. We've talked about this a lot this week. I think it's an extremely important discussion to have. My big problem with this idea that they're just like going to tank 2022, which I don't think they're actually can afford to do for this exact reason, because you can't just throw away Justin Fields' second year. His rookie year already got thrown away from just some incompetence. So to actively decide that, we're just not going to go out and get great players here because, we're just going to let things reset, fix the cap, which is part of what they're doing, but to just actively be bad, I don't think is part of the equation here and can't be part of the equation, because you are just failing, quite frankly, at doing what you were brought here to do. Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy, which is to win with Justin Fields.
Yeah, if they wanted to lose with Justin, they would have just kept Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace here and kept the status quo. The fact that they made these moves and brought these guys in to change it, like they're not going to just roll over and take it now. They're going to do their best to make this 2022 competitive, but also at the same time protect the future and set us up for success down the road. It's a delicate balance, and I think that's what we're seeing this week.
No, it's a really good point, Will. And if, like, maybe you look at the moves and you're kind of saying, like, maybe they are still setting up for Justin Fields to quote unquote fail, but you get a better draft pick in the end. It's like, yeah, but you're already doing damage to Fields for what could be a potential year 3. So it just doesn't align with what, is going to be in the best interest of the Bears. Like, we need to see growth from Justin Fields. So you do have to build up that line. You do need to add more playmakers on the outside so that when you do have more capital in terms of, draft space and obviously money, you can make those bigger moves and then see what Justin Fields is as a player at that point.
Yeah, this comment on the screen right now, I understand it. The plan is to hit free agency way harder next year with more cap. Would be helpful for Fields to show out to make bigger free agents want to sign here. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't think any of us are saying, hey, you got to go be the Jacksonville Jaguars right now and throw money everywhere. That's not at all. It's just make sure that you're not putting him in a bad situation where he can't develop. And I'll say this again, you can still structure contracts now, signings now, where more of it gets put towards 2023 when you're going to have more space. It doesn't all have to count right now. There's ways to do that. So just keep that in mind. I should mention our friends at PointsBet, of course, because the best way to support CHGO right now, if you're enjoying what we're doing, is to download the PointsBet app. Use the code CHGO when you sign up. If you do that right now, you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. And that's not it, because if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content. You'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. So that's $2,000 in free bets, free CHGO membership, and a free t-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making a $50 first-time deposit on PointsBet. If you have any questions about that, you can email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we'll help you out. PointsBet is your home for live in-play betting, and it just got even better because we now have PointsBet's new feature, the live college basketball same-game parlay. I got a game going on right here. We got Delaware and Villanova. Delaware's winning. So how about that for an upset? Maybe. It's still way early. Loyola lost. That was kind of a bummer. And for the first time ever, you can build the perfect live same-game parlay only with PointsBet. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game. Want more? You can also boost your live same-game parlays. Watch live, parlay live, boost live with PointsBet. And now online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can download the PointsBet app right now. Register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. Plus, during PointsBet Match Madness, all users can earn up to $100 in free bets during each round. Just place a $50 pregame wager and get a free $20 live bet to be used for that round. So what are you waiting for once the game starts? Don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
Chicago sports fans, if you aren't a member of our CHGO family, what are you waiting for? Members will have access to our premium content from all of our great writers. You also get a free t-shirt of your choice when you become a member, and you get access to the members only Discord, the CHGO Lounge. And of course, we have podcasts like this one, live shows every day of the week. So make sure you check all those out. So come join this amazing family that is constantly growing here at CHGO.
Want to also mention, if you're watching right now on YouTube, see that subscribe button right down there. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification, that little bell, and you'll find out when we go live. And today, we had to adjust our schedule a little bit because of the press conferences. So it's a good reason to have the notifications on. Every once in a while that might happen. We are trying to mostly do at 11 a.m., but the Bears had press conferences that went on today. So we moved things around just a little bit. And that's the reason for that on this Friday. We're going to keep the conversation going. Question here from Steven. Is Armstead really worth what he would cost, given he is unlikely to play much more than about half the games? Fair point. The theme here going, a lot of injured players. That's football.
That is football, but that's a guy that's such, one of the best left tackles in the league, right? And yes, you never know with health, with anybody, with any given player, it could happen just like that and their season can be over. But we were talking about this in yesterday's show, Adam, knowing that if you have a guy like Armstead on your left side, what does that do for Justin Fields in terms of just having that trust, that comfortability in the pocket, knowing that, hey, I have time. I can make this throw. I can make the progressions. I can make this read because I have a guy like that. And I think you would, if the Bears had an opportunity to take, I wouldn't call it a gamble, the opportunity to go get a guy like that, that helps you for 2023, like we're talking about. That helps you immediately for 2022. So I would definitely make the move if the Bears were in the interest of acquiring an Armstead.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to add. It's a easy decision to make if they can come to terms. I understand injury history here too, but again, most guys that are on the market, they're here for one reason or another. Usually injuries are going to be there.
And Cliff says, if nothing else, Armstead could help teach Tevin and Borum. And, it's another thing we went into detail about yesterday, which is the idea of, and the way Olin's been talking about this on the show, is that left tackle kind of playing like a corner on an island would, right? Like you can always single over there and not have to worry about it. Allows you to allocate other resources elsewhere on your O-line, which helps everybody and helps your quarterback. All right. Let's move to what actually did happen today at Hallis Hall. There's the introduction of Lucas Patrick, Nicholas Moreau, and Nicholas Moreano, not the linebacker, but the guy who's here on the show, was there at Hallis Hall. Patrick says he will play center. What was your reaction to that and your overall takeaways from his introductory press conference joining the Bears?
Yeah, I think with Patrick kind of just staying that out front, again, it gives you some clarification as to what Ryan Poles wants to do with this roster. It also leaves a question, where does Sam Mustipher kind of fit into things now with Patrick kind of looking that he's going to be that center? But just general takeaways from what he said today, you could just tell that he's really grateful for the opportunity to play with the Chicago Bears. At times he got a little emotional. You can hear it in his voice. You can see it in his face. Definitely thanking his family for sacrificing a lot to put him in this position. But the one quote that for me that stood out was like, football is not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. And knowing that the Bears-Packers games, what it's going to come down to is who can kind of win in the trenches. That's a lot of what Ryan Poles has been saying. And we have the graphic up here. I've got a switch. I can flip. I don't believe football is a contact sport. I believe it's a collision sport, and that's how I like to play it. So you see the mentality that Lucas Patrick kind of plays with, and that's been echoed by Ryan Poles and what he's been saying, since he got the job as the Bears general manager. So Lucas Patrick, it makes sense why the Bears wanted to bring him in. Obviously fills a need, but now you kind of wonder where does Sam Mustipher fit on this team moving forward?
Yeah, what I liked today out of Patrick was the fact like he does seem confident in his ability to play center, and he mentioned it kind of allows him to blend two of his strengths together, both his mental and his physical approach to the game. He says that's the way that football should be played, how it's intended to play, which is physical, tough, but smart. And then having that trio combination, kind of anchoring down, I think what he called the apex of the offense and the offensive line there too, I think is, reassuring, at least for me to hear today. And the fact that he does have that Getsy connection. And I think he said he can be a translator, like, hey, this is what we're trying to, install here and why we're doing it this way. Having someone in the building that can do that, and that's not a coach, but it's like a colleague up front with these guys, I think would be, super helpful throughout OTAs, mini camps, and training camp and beyond.
I love that quote that we had up there for a minute because, we kind of heard that about Lucas Patrick, that he's got a little bit of a mean streak, and just, it's a good way to put it. I don't believe it's a contact sport. I believe it's a collision sport. That's how I like to play it. The Bears need more of that on their offensive line. They need more physicality. So I like hearing that from him. The other quote that we wanted to bring up has to do more with the Bears-Packers rivalry. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. He said, I've been on the winning side. I'm going to stay on the winning side. We're going to start winning these games. I firmly believe to win a Bears-Packers game, you got to win it up front. You got to be physical. You got to be tough. That's what we're going to do here. Typically, whoever wins those games takes the North. Like Ryan Poles said, that's the goal here. Take the North, get to the playoffs, get a shot at Lombardi. So, I would think that, and we'll judge from our commenters here live on YouTube, I would think if you're a Bears fan, that probably gets you pretty jacked up.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, I hopefully I am. We've seen those games over the past forever, right? Like the Bears when they lose to Green Bay, it's an embarrassing fashion. They just get steamrolled, and really it does begin up front. Just bullying that defense, wearing them down, and the fact that we have a guy coming from Green Bay to Chicago to kind of instill that here in our trenches and set that tone. Kind of go with that mindset. It's music to my ears, but words can only go so far. I do want to kind of see it translate on the field when we get to the games here come September.
One way where it wasn't just Patrick's kind of his words, how he had to earn Aaron Rodgers' trust, something else that he kind of talked about in this press conference. Like, he was asked, how'd you earn that trust? And he mentioned, like, you just need to be a pro, need to be consistent, be able to grow as a player. So he was already walking the walk, so to speak, in terms of how to get a player like Aaron Rodgers respect. And look, Lucas Patrick wasn't given anything, being undrafted, had to work his way up and eventually got some playing time with the Packers. So if you can get Aaron Rodgers respect, and now obviously coming to Chicago, and Ryan Poles said he brings kind of that leadership aspect, that's what you want to see. And he's saying all the right things right now. But like Will said, we need to kind of see it come to fruition with his new team. But yeah, I think if you're a Bears fan, you're excited about that because it's been way too long now for him being on the winning side on the Green Bay Packers. And now can it finally trickle over to the Bears side?
We certainly don't hate the idea of taking the Packers offense coordinator. Well, he was quarterback's coach, making him your offense coordinator, bringing over to the center. I guess they signed Equimania St. Brown too. Not sure that falls in the same category. I think he had 9 catches last year.
Sounds right.
But it's a start at least. And Tony says we missed that toughness, that nastiness up front in Chicago for too long now. Patrick brings that back. Imagine adding Armstead too. I mean, that's really what it is. I think it's a mindset that you have to have on your offensive line. The Bears have lacked that physicality, and I think that even if Lucas Patrick isn't a Pro Bowler, and I don't necessarily think he will be in Chicago, I still think it helps. Step in the right direction. We'll see where it goes from there.
Hey, Adam, real quick, we got some breaking news from Adam Schefter. The Bears are signing defensive end Al-Quadin Muhammad from the Colts. So Eberflus gets another guy here in Chicago.
All right. So a defensive end, which was another position of need. You're switching back to a 4-3. You have a clear, obvious connection with the Colts. Where Matt Eberflus came from. Alan Williams, a defensive coordinator too. So 2 years, $10 million, it looks like. So, not big money, but another guy to add to the mix to at least probably push Travis Gibson a little bit on the defensive end.
I think it goes with the theme that we've seen so far of like he's almost building this roster from the bottom up. Outside the signing of Lucas over there for the center, the receivers that we've signed, this one here too. It seems like we're working on those depth pieces, those contributors, and then we're kind of playing the waiting game to find out who those starters could end up being if we are going to make some of those bigger signings at these positions.
Yeah, just kind of quickly, guys, looking at Muhammad's stats from last season. Again, playing with Matt Eberflus with the Colts, had a career high in sacks, total tackles for loss. He had 7, 13 quarterback hits. So guy coming off his best statistical year, and we'll see how that kind of translates now that he's back with Matt Eberflus. Alan Williams there as the defense coordinator with the Bears. So yeah, and a lot of these moves, you look at them, the ones that are going to be coming in later, like is there a connection somewhere too? And obviously we see that with Muhammad. And again, they're just bolstering that front seven that we talked about in a couple podcasts ago. We probably mentioned in every podcast, like there wasn't a lot of depth there. Now the Bears are starting to build some guys there and starting to add some players that can help contribute for this defense.
Yeah, and look, this is what I would consider a rotational piece, but again, one that makes a lot of sense. This is one of those names that's been linked to the Bears, like really from the start of free agency because of the connection with the Colts and Matt Eberflus. So not surprised it happened. And the Bears have now reportedly signed 2 defensive linemen since the Larry Ogunjobi failed physical news came out this morning. All right, we got a big super chat here. If Getsy is building an offense based on the strengths of this team, David Montgomery is the best player on offense. Can we survive with Mooney as wide receiver 1 in that type of offense, assuming the Bears draft a wide receiver as well? Guys?
It's a good question. Can we survive with Mooney as wide receiver 1? I mean, you look at the guy that they just traded, the Green Bay Packers, Devontae Adams. That offense that Luke Getsy was helping operate in Green Bay, a lot ran through Devontae Adams. And now you're trying to translate, see what Getsy's going to bring here to Chicago. Is Mooney that guy that you can necessarily run an offense through? I don't think so. Yes, he had over 1,000 yards last season, career highs in every statistical category outside of touchdowns where he tied his rookie year. But I still think maybe what Getsy's going to do is he's going to adjust how he kind of operates, what he wants to do. It's going to be more of a committee approach, if you will, in terms of how he wants to operate with this offense that he has here in Chicago.
I think it depends on the definition of survive, at least for me. Honestly, Mooney, I don't see him as a true wide receiver 1 who can handle 150 targets a season if we're going that same route that we saw up in Green Bay with Adams. But if for some reason, if we don't draft anyone or any other bigger signings and he is the guy, I think we'll be fine. We saw that last year when they pretty much phased out Allen Robinson. Like, things were okay. They weren't great. And getting a more competent system in place, perhaps that can also kind of help. I don't think it's going to hurt. So depends on definition of survive, but I'm all right with it.
Yeah, the other part of that comment, though, that I agree with is that David Montgomery is the best player on offense. I mean, I think everybody hopes that Justin Fields becomes that, but he's not there yet. My grades show that David Montgomery was a very good player. I don't think enough people give him enough credit for really the type of running back he is and how good he was last season when he was healthy. Now, that's still a scary thing because he's going into the last year of his rookie deal. And as much as I like David Montgomery, I do not think it would be smart to sign him to an extension until you see what this offense looks like this year. Scheme change, new coaching staff, new general manager. Unless he's willing to take a very team-friendly deal, it does not make a lot of sense. I'm a believer in not spending a ton of money on running backs. So I'd be surprised if that happened. But that's kind of where it gets scary when you're talking about him being your best offensive player, running the offense through him. When, oh, by the way, everyone's like, aren't they throwing away 2022? Like, you know what I mean? So if this is all about 2023, then how does the running back who's not under contract for 2023 work into that? That, as you're putting this offense together, like, you got to juggle that.
And I'll add to this, Adam, too. Like Olin has said a couple times now on the CHGO Bears podcast, like, does David Montgomery necessarily fit the outside zone scheme? Again, a new scheme that you mentioned is coming in. And, I think David Montgomery can, but that's also a question mark as we're seeing who these offensive linemen are going to be. And if he's your best player in a new scheme, how is that all going to play out? So all different factors that we have to just think about as we kind of are approaching this next season.
Yeah, I put my thoughts out there where I think Herbert is a better true fit on this podcast. And obviously, Montgomery is very talented. I love how he can fight through those tackles. Let's see what he can do with an offensive line, hopefully, that can give him some room to operate. That's something he hasn't really had the privilege of playing behind throughout his entire time here in Chicago. But yeah, that's still, I think, being a fit in this offense is one of my bigger question marks for Monty, heading into this season.
Well, we have plenty more to get to before we're out of here at 3:00 because there was some big news going on in a big trade that really affects the Bears yesterday up in Green Bay that we'll get to. Of course, Allen Robinson signed with the Rams, and there were some wide receivers that the Bears signed that we got to give our thoughts on as well. But first, Nick, take it away on PointsBet.
Yeah, if you enjoy CHGO, one way that you can help us continue to grow is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content. You'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com and we'll help you out. And in case you missed it, online sign up is available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bets life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
And if you're watching or listening to the podcast, we appreciate it. You already know then that the podcast and live shows are every single day, Monday through Friday on every team. So it's not just the Bears. You want to check out Bulls, Blackhawks, White Sox, Cubs. We got reporters, spring training right now. White Sox got that sweep of the Cubs yesterday. Not that it counts or anything, but it counts for me. Okay. And the post-game shows are coming for all the teams, and those are always free. We appreciate that. But if you want the premium written content for members at allchgo.com, please get on the website, check it out. And right now is the time to sign up, because if you don't take advantage of that PointsBet offer, you can also just sign up. You do get a free t-shirt when you become a member. And of course, member or not, you can check out all the merchandise we have on all of the teams. But with that membership, you do get the members only Discord, the CHGO Lounge, where you can interact with us at any time. It's a good place to keep some of the great conversation. Quite frankly, I got to say, I'm a little surprised at how civil and smart the YouTube chat has been during our show. I'd like to think it's a reflection of our show, maybe, but I really do appreciate it. It's fun to have, good, entertaining, educational football conversation going on in the YouTube chat during a show. So keep that going. And we know there's a couple trolls that pop in and out there every once in a while.
Big news. Deshaun Watson has decided he wants to play for the Cleveland Browns, according to Adam Schefter. So kudos to our chat, because I saw that in the chat here. So what is going on? Wow.
He changed his mind. This
Watson has informed the Houston Texans that he now is willing to waive the no trade clause in his contract to be dealt to Cleveland. Hey, but I thought they were keeping Baker Mayfield, right?
This NFL offseason is just completely drunk.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Like what?
I don't know. Just it's crazy. This is nuts.
What does Joakim Noah think about this? That's what I want to know. Cleveland? Like Cleveland, really? That's where you're going? Good for the Browns, man. That is crazy. Yeah, Watson has formed the Houston Texans. He's now willing to waive his no trade clause in his contract to be dealt to Cleveland. I guess that explains why this thing was held up.
And what? The Atlanta Falcons pushed back some money with Matt Ryan just the other day, and you're kind of thinking connecting the dots. Nope. Let's go back to Cleveland. That's a roster that's ready to compete. They were missing the quarterback, and now that Deshaun Watson's there, man, you can just put the AFC West, and then now the Browns on prime time. You're gonna have a lot of fun.
Hey, at least for the Bears, he goes out of the NFC, so he's not gonna enter this conference. That's a plus in my eyes.
I mean, it's amazing. You had the entire NFC South, with the exception of Tom Brady's Bucks. You can't even call it a bidding war, because Deshaun Watson had all the control. So it's not like they could up each other and outbid. That would have been a great situation for Houston. But he ends up just going, nah, I'm going to go to the AFC North and go to Cleveland. Wow.
He saw Mitch in Pittsburgh and was like, I can take this.
Not a bad. I mean, yeah, I understand what you're saying. That's a team. That is a team where you add Deshaun Watson. That's a difference maker. That is huge news. And getting the reaction.
Lamar Jackson twice a year, and you could throw in Mitchell Trubisky if you want into that equation as well. But man, that becomes, it just becomes a very interesting division. And now, like I said earlier, the Cleveland Browns are up there in terms of the teams you got to watch out for.
This is starting to look like relegation. You got the AFC is the Premier League, and the NFC is the championship. Got that reference.
I can
in
see
there.
that.
I got that reference in there for our producer Lawrence, just for him. Good point here on the super chat, Groby. Watson could be news for us for Armstead, because I have wondered if he was sitting there waiting to figure out where he wanted to go.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Maybe he'll go to Cleveland.
Yeah, maybe we had like topics we wanted to talk about. Right now, Deshaun Watson said, "No, never mind. Forget your topics. You're talking about me and the Cleveland Browns." Like, that's still wild.
We can use Browns as a segue to one of the Bears, the receivers, if we need to get back on track.
Well, Tom Pelissero did point out yesterday on Twitter that NFL free agency is the real March Madness. And
feels like it.
I feel bad for the NCAA tournament. Like, they can't just get there any shiny moment, let alone one shiny moment. It's just the NFL just keeps trumping it. This is crazy. So, but yes, we should talk about, the impact to the Bears here. I think good point from the super chat there that it's could affect Armstead. I think probably thinking very optimistically there, but you are trying to keep the glass half full, as was established earlier on in the show. In terms of the more direct impact right away within the NFC North, that was the big news that came out yesterday, almost 24 hours ago, and the Packers trading Davante Adams to the Raiders. Again, relegation, you have to send him to the AFC because, the NFC just isn't allowed to have good players anymore, apparently.
No, that's basically it. And when you're competing in that division, you need all the playmakers they can get. And what are the Raiders? Are the Raiders what, the fourth team in that division? Which is nuts.
It's crazy.
No, but hey, Davante Adams out of the North. Great news for Bears fans, the Chicago Bears. I'm sure that put a nice smile on almost every face inside of Hollis Hall when that news broke yesterday. And not only do you get the best receiver in the division out of here, you take away Aaron Rodgers, best playmaker, and that only hopefully going to lead to good things. I put in my notes for, Nick, like, if Aaron Rodgers is Batman, did we get rid of Robin? If Rodgers is Thor, did we just lose his hammer? Just things like that to kind of get, the ball rolling here for you.
Yeah, Thor without his hammer is not as powerful for you Marvel fans, obviously. But I think too, there's a lot of speculation like going on Twitter, like, oh, did Rodgers not know about this? Like, of course he had to have known what was kind of going in the works, but it seems weird for a team that is ready to win now that you do trade Davante Adams, get that first round and second round draft pick, because yes, maybe go and now finally draft wide receivers, which the Packers should have done instead of Jordan Love. But it just seems weird for a team that does seem like they have all the pieces in place that now Davante Adams is not a part of that equation.
Yeah, look, this is we've been talking about it on the show about matching up Jalen Johnson versus Davante Adams, how the Bears match up defensively, and like the best way to defend that problem is to just get rid of him.
Yep.
Right? Like, he's just gone. So problem solved. And now I still think the Packers have to make other moves. Like, you don't bring Aaron Rodgers back and then you're just like, okay, here's all the same wide receivers except Davante Adams. So I think there will be some moves. I think they'll look into a trade. They were reportedly in on Odell Beckham last year before he went to the Rams. So like, I have a feeling by the time the season starts, they're going to have some guys there that are still going to be tough to defend. But right now, Darnell Mooney is the best wide receiver of the two teams, if you're comparing the Packers and the Bears right now.
100% agreed with that one. And again, I know, like you said, Adam, like, they can bring in someone, and most likely will, that will be, a problem for this defense. They're going to have to do it. But I think it's the exact way that Adams has stressed this defense over the past years, being that guy who can line up in the slot and tear that defense apart, or go to the outside and win those 50-50 balls in the end zone, and just stress them in so many different ways. As long as they find someone that's maybe a little bit, I'm not going to say one-dimensional, but a little bit more in a box than maybe Adams was, that's still going to make things easier for the Bears compared to just, still having him here.
I mean, look, Allen Lazard is the second wide receiver on their roster right now with 40 receptions, over just a little over 500 yards. They're definitely going to add to that position, but regardless, I think whoever you bring in, it's not going to be Devontae Adams. It's not going to be a guy that's in that caliber, even if it is a first-round draft pick. You have to wait to see that guy grow into being whatever it is that he'll ultimately become. But yeah, I think that it obviously is a move that helps the NFC North. Justin Jefferson, I think, gets pegged as the best wide receiver in now the division. But now Darnell Mooney kind of creeps up that ladder in terms of just wide receivers and guys that can make plays in there.
Someone just said that the draft is loaded with wide receivers, but it also puts the Packers in play to, take one of those wide receivers before the Bears even get a pick. I don't think people are going to be too happy if Chris Olave ends up in Green Bay, right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would sting.
Sorry, but it's possible. Meanwhile, Allen Robinson is gone. He signs with the Rams. Pretty sure that was a lot less money than the Bears were offering him. So, sometimes that's the way things work. I'm talking about, back when there was an offer and some talks that Allen Robinson wasn't pleased with, before the franchise tag. There wasn't an offer recently. So that's how that worked out. He signs with the Rams. Pretty good spot for him, but it's still plenty of money. Decent contract, 3-year deal for him. I don't have the money right in front of me. I should have it in front of me, but still a good opportunity for
Allen
him.
Robinson, man.
Yeah.
Happy for Robinson. He's on a contender, plays Matthew Stafford. Obviously, them just win the Super Bowl. So let's see what Allen Robinson can do with an actual quarterback. Somebody that is in that caliber that Stafford is. And with Sean McVay, I think you'll see what 2021 that season was for Allen Robinson. Again, it's going to be a 9-day difference. That's, in my opinion, that's what it's going to look like for him, because stable franchise, a good offensive-minded head coach, and a quarterback. I think you'll see the Robinson that was putting up stats when, he had Trubisky, Chase Daniel, like those kind of guys throwing him the ball.
Yeah, I think it was a 3-year, $46.5 million for A-Rob. So definitely a decent payday. I take it.
Yeah. He's got to be happy. I agree. I think he's a good fit in that offense. He'll do pretty well. By the way, Johnny Hecker in punter news, signing with Chris Tabor and the Panthers. So
nice.
Austin Hooper to the Titans is Tristan. Maybe we need to keep going here. This feels like 3:00 on Wednesday when free agency was supposed to start. Like, it's nice for this to finally start. I mean, we kind of felt like Deshaun Watson had to sign to really get the moves going. I don't know why Johnny Hecker was hung up on Deshaun Watson before he had to make his decision, but that's how these things are. That was obviously a joke. He wasn't waiting for Deshaun Watson.
Did you see the contract for Watson? It's already Rappaport.
So a huge raise, it looks like, over $48 million or something.
Let's see. Deshaun Watson gets a fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million. That is $80 million more than the previous record for fully guaranteed money at signing, $150 million from Ian Rappaport. So, yeah, he's making a lot of money too.
And since void language was such a discussion this week, I'm assuming those guarantees will not be voided when he gets his inevitable suspension for everything off the field, which is still out there, by the way. But, it does go to show you that this was really, with the no trade clause, this was more of a free agency situation, really, than a trade situation, because it's not like these teams could increase their draft picks going to Houston to get them. They had to basically say, hey, we're willing to offer you more money. And in that sense, it became a bidding war. We'll redo your contract and give you more money. And maybe that's where Cleveland flew in late when they were reportedly out and got this thing turned in their favor. So we'll see.
Yeah, they're trading 3 first-round picks and 2 additional picks to get Deshaun Watson.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's what it takes to get a franchise. We saw it with Russell Wilson, but I mean, yeah, you see what it takes to get a franchise kind of quarterback.
Baker Mayfield now will be somewhere else. Obviously, I think Indianapolis might be a good spot for him. And if you're Washington, like, again, why were you in such a rush to get Carson Wentz? You could have been in play for Baker Mayfield. I'd much rather have Baker Mayfield than Carson Wentz at this point. So there's just some questions there that I have. Final thoughts before we get out of here. The Bears, you give, let's see, quick rapid thoughts on Equimania St. Brown.
Guy.
Right. He's big. He's 6'5". He has okay speed, but having, he hasn't had 10 catches in a season since his rookie year, coming off 9 catch, 98-yard year, 1 career touchdown. It's a death piece. I know you can play special teams, but again, maybe you're building, your floor and working your way up to the ceiling here. I definitely like the other guy better.
Yeah. How about Byron Pringle?
Definitely a better fit, at least in terms of like what I want to see on the field. Someone who can play inside and out, does a lot of damage in the slot. When you see him play, last year in Kansas City, which was his, career year, so to speak, he's a guy who can make plays happen after the catch, take those short routes, turn them into big gains. Just makes life difficult for DBs and it's hard to take down in first contact. So that's the kind of receiver I envisioned the Bears bringing in here. He has the Poles connection. So obviously Poles has some good belief that, Pringle can either elevate compared to what we saw last year, or at least provide similar, statistical production, or at least, someone that can be an option for Justin Fields as well. So I like Pringle much better than St. Brown.
Yeah, just real quickly, Adam. I mean, look, you have Tyreek Hill in that roster, Travis Kelce, McCole Hardman, then you have Pringle. So there's a lot of guys that were getting the stats there. So maybe change of scenery. Yes, he had Patrick Mahomes, but maybe this is exactly what Pringle needed to maybe take that next step and what he can potentially do. So I do like that signing, and like with all the things that Will just said, that kind of adds to why Pringle is, I think, valued more than a St. Brown at this point.
And also with Pringle too, 2 concerns I would have that I want to see cleaned up this year would be drops and fumbles. He had 2 fumbles last year and 7 drops in 2021, which is the 6th most in the NFL of all wide receivers. And I know drops was an area of concern for him coming out of college, so he does need to clean that up, as at least in my eyes, moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I still think that this is an obvious position of need. I'm curious to see what else the Bears do. The options out there on the open market are limited. Be shocked at this point if an earlier draft pick isn't used on wide receiver. But I do like the Pringle signing. I think it's a decent fit. Not surprising with Ryan Poles' connection to Kansas City. Equimania St. Brown. We'll see. Yeah, he falls in that category we talked about earlier this week, where it's like, yeah, he might not even be on the team by the time the season starts. You don't know. But the big news here as we close out, Deshaun Watson traded to, at least, supposedly everything seems like it,
clears his medicals.
Clear the medicals. And those 22 civil lawsuits too. I mean, what an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. Quarterback like that with the off the field stuff still pending. Not only do you trade 3 first-round draft picks, but then you up his contract. You give him a massive contract. Whew.
Browns must have done their homework, obviously, knowing that you're willing to do that stuff, because you don't do all that and not know exactly who he is.
Wouldn't it also be like the most Cleveland Browns thing ever if this whole thing just turns into be an utter disaster?
100%.
Yeah.
Before we go ahead, Adam.
No, I was just gonna say it's funny how we look at this, because it's like if the New Orleans Saints had pulled it off, you're like, oh, okay, Saints back in the Super Bowl hunt. With the Browns, and by the way, they're still a really good team. They may not be in the Super Bowl hunt, but it's just like, I don't know. Is this thing really gonna work out if you went to Cleveland?
I think they're going to miss those 3 first-round picks. Like, that's hard. I mean, we know in Chicago, like, how hard it could be to, build through the draft when you keep giving those away, and to not have 3 of those consecutively. I think that will hurt, down the road. It may be easy to, let go of right now, but something I think they not regret per se, but will make things tougher for them moving forward. Before we do close, though, I know a lot of people in the chat were saying, hey, the Bears signed Muhammad from Indy. We did see that. We mentioned it about at the halfway point of the show. So if you're watching live and you missed it, once we're done, definitely, go back through the replay to catch what we said about that signing.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent a big portion at the start talking about the Larry Ogunjobi situation. Obviously, and kind of how much of a hot topic that became today. So if you jumped in the middle, we appreciate you doing so, but you can go back and check out the podcast. If you missed really anything this week, you can go back and check out our podcast. Olin Krutz was on yesterday, and he will be back Monday with us. I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Make sure you check out allchgo.com. Get those memberships. Check out our friends at PointsBet. Use that code CHGO. You can even get that free membership by signing up for a new account with PointsBet and depositing $50 into that account. So please take advantage of that. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Will DeWitt, but the L's are ones. But you could figure that out. It's right there on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. At Nick's at Nicholas Moreano as well. We have podcast live shows every single day. The premium content is at allchgo.com. Merchandise is up too. Please hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. We'll be back all next week, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. with all the reaction and news as it flows in with the Bears and other things, because the way this is going, it could be a wild weekend by the time we get back together on Monday. But hopefully everybody enjoys the weekend. Sorry about Iowa, Nick, and go Badgers. Talk to you Monday.